Arya arrives at the House of Black and White in an episode where Dany's choices are shrouded in gray. Arya's new home of Braavos and the city of Meereen that Daenerys occupies are also diametrically opposed. One is built on slavery and the other was founded in opposition to it.
Meereen used to be part of the Great Valerian Freehold, which was an empire that spanned most of Essos for eons. Valerians are the people that the Targaryens came from, and while Daenerys is against slavery, throughout most of history, Valerians were very much for it, and used an army of dragons to make sure slavery was practiced throughout their empire.
Before it was conquered by Valaria, Meereen was part of the ancient Giscari Empire, and many of the families of Meereen date that far back. Giscari were legendary slavers, and Valaria may have adopted the practice from them.
Braavos is the only major city in Essos that wasn't ever occupied by the Valerians. Instead, it was founded by slaves who were escaping those silver-haired Valerians and their dragons. Braavos was hidden for centuries. An underground railroad populated the city, and it grew into one of the wealthiest, most cosmopolitan places in the world.
But with Valerian dragons in the world, Braavos couldn't rest easy. No one has ever said for certain what happened to Valaria, but we do know it was destroyed in a massive volcanic catastrophe about 400 years before the start of the show. All the dragons and Valerian noble families were killed at once, except one.
That would be the Targaryens, who, legend has it, heard a prophecy of doom and moved with their dragons off the coast of Westeros to Dragonstone, where they sat for a century before using those dragons to take Westeros for themselves, but that's a story for another time.
So what destroyed Valaria? Maybe it was a natural disaster, but nothing that horrible has happened before or since. Many of Valeria's slaves worked deep in the heart of their volcanoes, so escaped slaves in Braavos knew their inner workings and maybe how to manipulate them. But blowing them up would require great stealth, great disguise, and unparalleled killing skills. Nobody has those, right?
Well, except for the Faceless Men, a guild of magical assassins that lives at the House of Black and White and are revered as national heroes in Braavos, for some reason. Talk about killing the masters.
Daenerys is trying a different approach. She did kill several of the Masters of Meereen, but she did not eradicate any families, and as her freedman counselor Massador points out, they still hold their wealth and their pyramids. Dany started out trying to transform Slavers Bay through fire and blood, but now she's attempting to do it through rule of law.
But slavery doesn't die that easily. Slave owners are going to fight back with everything they've got. Daenerys doesn't want to consider what the old Braavosi assassins seem to have figured out 400 years ago, which is that in order to crush slavery, you have to be willing to crush the people who defend it.
Daenerys wants to hold a trial for the captured son of the Harpy, so she appears just in the eyes of all. But when Massador kills him first, Dany executes Massador in front of the whole city. Presumably, she thought this would show both sides that they are to obey the law, but as she learned, every action will either be seen to favor one side or the other. Now she's lost the love of the freedmen and gained little or none from the masters.
Her chained-up dragons are a symbol of her fear of waging all-out war on the masters. But I have to point out, if she'd stripped them of all their wealth gained through slavery and killed anyone who resisted emancipation in the first place, she wouldn't be having these problems.
Dragons forced slavery on people for thousands of years, and now they may be the only way to end it. We're not saying it would be right to go on such a bloody rampage, but it would work. Drogon visits Dany, maybe to gauge her willingness to live up to her house's words, but he sees what we see, a woman who isn't ready to wake the dragon inside herself.
Next week looks like Westeros is getting religion, giving us a chance to talk about the various gods, some of which seem very real, on Game of Thrones. So tune into House Slate next Monday.